We have now come to the very special moment of the inaugural Creativity for Social Change Award that we present very proudly with, in partnership with the Moleskine Foundation. So how did it come about? When we were planning for our 10th Art for Tomorrow program, we were wanting to find something. We wanted to create an activity, a project that would be meaningful, that would be impactful, that would shine light on emerging talent and creative talent, especially from the global South. We knew that we needed a partner to do this. And when we came across Moleskine Foundation, when Adama, Sanneh, the CEO of the foundation, spoke to us about a very, very impressive and impactful Creativity Pioneers program that the Moleskine Foundation has been running for years, we knew that we could not go any further than that. So at this point, I would like to invite you, Adama, and also Anna Meneguzzo, who is the Brand and Communication Creative Officer for Moleskine, for the presentation of this award. So, Anna and Adama.
Ciao, everybody. It's so hard after this panel to say something smart. Wow. It's really an honor for me to be here representing Moleskine for this award. And it is a unique gem that we share with the Moleskine Foundation, the same credo, that is creativity that can change the world. We do believe that. And actually, Simon talked about we need new artists. Well, as Moleskine, we do exist to help people unleash their own genius so that we can keep on refreshing, the genius in arts and in creativity for everyone. So it is, for me, it is important, this award. It has a strong meaning. We all thought about Koyo. So apart from the meaning, we have witnessed a lot of genius unleashed on our notebooks. And so this is an award, but at the same time, it's also a kind reminder to please stay genius until it's still legal. Otherwise, we lose our jobs. So this is...
That was actually pretty good, and like, I said, thank you, Achilles, and thank you, Anna and all Moleskine for supporting this idea of creativity for social change. When we came out with the idea of creating an award, we wanted to simply bring the attention to how creativity and culture and the arts are important tool to transform society. In some cases, the only way to transform society. And we just wanted to, bring attention to a larger audience. That's what we do. But this idea was not based on theory. It was based on the life and legacy of the people who have transformed the world, who are keeping transforming the world through arts and culture. I'm thinking about people like Paulo Freire. I'm thinking about people like Bell Hooks. I'm thinking about people like Pier Paolo Pasolini. People that decided to use their own sensitivity, their experience, their talent in a transformative way, not only for themselves, but for the community they decide to serve. And it is exactly for this reason that we would like to dedicate this first edition of the Creativity for Social Change Award to our sister and friend, Koyo Kuo. Koyo You inspire a generation. You make us uh, believe and think and realize that certain things that seems impossible are possible. And we have been grateful, and we are grateful, and we've been extremely lucky to have find you in our path. And it is exactly Koyo who reminded us that art is not an extra, you know. Art is fundamental for society because it's the only thing that allow society to think about itself. And in this with this ethos that we came out with the idea of the Creativity for Social Change Award. It was an incredible first edition. Um, we had a lot of decision to make last second. We had to figure it out. That's what creativity most of the time is about. You got to figure it out. But it was incredible. We received more than 160 nominations from more than 60 countries. And the amount of talent and intentionality that is out in the world to transform what is possible, it's heartwarming. Every time, the pessimism, start bringing on, really just observing and looking what is happening outside, no matter what, is what can really shift the idea of what's possible. And and so we should have like now a way to create some form of tension or suspense on how to go about it.
Well, we'll have to be very creative.
With the powerful tools that we have.
Absolutely, our hands. So, drum roll. And the winner is.
The beautiful man right there who's smiling. Kiluanji Kiahenda.
Okay, I know you forgot. I know. Don't worry. Next year we'll do it better. um, that's a great honor to receive that prize. I want to thank the Moleskine Foundation for Democracy and Culture um, to host me and have the opportunity to be here with such wonderful audience. Yes, I've been listening to conversation about the future of the museum, and I was thinking also about the idea of so what is the future of the places, the societies with no museums, and that's also what is the question of the place where I'm from, because we're still struggling with that. There's no art museums in Angola. This year we just lost another great artist and friend, Marco Cabenda, which passed away, and there's no way of having access to what he produced, which also happened with other artists like Paulo Capella, Paulo Jazz, and I remember like some weeks ago I was talking with a friend, a filmmaker from Luanda, and he was telling me how upset he feels when he was studying cinema in New York, and people would ask him, "So where are you from?" And he would say, "Like I'm from Angola," and people would ask him again, "But Mongolia?" And say, "No, Angola." And he made me feel like really upset. And he was telling me, Kilwanji, we really have to do more to put the name of the country on the map worldwide. And I was like, I don't think I agree with you, because I think that's it's the job that American government should do to teach their own citizens about their history, because it's considered that a third of the people that were trafficked during the slavery that were taken to Americas were from that place that today we call Angola. Well, the first slave ship that arrived in Virginia is in 1619 was definitely not from Mongolia. It was from Angola. And and so it goes back to all that history of violence, of extreme violence. So then we went through 14 years of civil colonial war, because the dictatorship from Portugal, Salazar, he had this special love for Angola. You'd say, okay, now he's the jewel of the empire. We cannot lose Angola. So they send thousands of troops and they start like a colonial war, and brutal colonial war. And it went like for 14 years. And when the colonial war had finished in 75, there was a civil war, the longest civil war on the planet that is known. 30 years of civil war. A civil war where we had uh, Cuban troops sent by Fidel to stop the South African apartheid army that was invading Angola. We had the Americans supporting the army of apartheid also invading Angola. So Mr. Reagan offering missiles, portable missiles for that invasions. We had Russian airplanes flying in the skies. There were like people living in remote places that they never see a car in their life, and they had like these huge airplanes, high technology. So we didn't have the access to globalization through Coca-Cola or McDonald's. No, it was Kalashnikov and missiles, stingers, and other kinds of weaponry that were at that place. Um, and then finally, like when that war was finished, I was 23 years old when the Civil War had finished. We had that moment of proudness of living in a country that is finally, could say, that went through this period, actually, because it was the war that was happening. It was much part of the geostrategic of the Cold War, the so-called Cold War, which at the end Angola was a hotspot of that Cold War. At the end, we had inherited from that war around 2 million landmines. And then we also had problems with the blood diamonds. But who's gonna tell you the story of blood diamonds is not Angolans, because we don't have the capacity or the instruments to do it. Who's telling the story is Leonardo DiCaprio. Hollywood, they send the bombs and then they do the story, like very romantic, woo, searching for his love, like diamond dealer, yeah, that falls in love and then feels like, oh my God, why I'm selling diamonds? Um, yeah, but then we go like, okay, we have to do something, we cannot just stay here. And then we start a whole discussion in the country. Okay, how are we gonna rehabilitate? How are we gonna talk about our own history? How are we gonna get the means to do it? And then there are people, there's like the oil boom, the economy is growing, kuduro, like the frenetic rhythm of music. And people say, like, that's the moment, let's do it. But then people don't want to look to the past in Angola. It's like, why are you talking about war? Why are you talking about that past? It's like, we are now in peace. Like, look, those skyscrapers in the city. Uh, so we lived that moment of optimism after the war had finished in 2002. Uh, but again, there was things in the past that we still had to address. We still had the same president since the year I was born in 1979, and he was still in power. And so there was a new generation that were feeling that now, okay, it's time for a change. And in 2015, there is a group of activists that went to jail because they were falsely accused of trying to plan a coup d'etat. And that was a moment that we were thinking, okay, now we as an artist, it's time to take an action, because we were being silenced by all that extreme violence from the past. There are also like an episode in our history in May of 1977 where there was kind of genocide. More than 30,000 people were killed. There's not an exact number, but were thousands of people. And most, not most, but a lot of them were intellectuals, artists, musicians. And so it created a fear that went from generation to generation, which also came to our generation, my generation. And at that moment, we felt now we need to create a space to address those issues. We need to create that space. So in 2015, while those young activists were in jail, we create this movement, Freedom Now, Liberdade Já. But then in Luanda, together with another a group of artists, another 5 artists, we were like, okay, it's time to throw a stone into these muddy waters. So what we should do, okay, we have this hotel in downtown that is empty, so maybe it could be a nice place to do something. It's called Hotel Globo. It's a former hotel in downtown of Luanda. And so we decide to occupy those rooms, and we start this event called Fucking Global. We put that name Fucking Global because it was a way, okay, we didn't want, as part of manifest was like, we don't want any institutional support. We need to create a space of freedom where, well, let's say you can never get absolute freedom, but the least of freedom you want to get, you need some courage. And that was important to be together as collective to address those issues, to have this political and social engagement that we were aiming. So being as a collective, it brought us to that place, and it was not only about what the topics we wanted to address in the works that were being created there, because for almost a decade we did that project, and around 75 artworks were created site specific, for the event. And so there's many of the media's language, artistic language, that would survive in that environment, because we didn't have any commercial intention. It was a non-profit like movement, and there was artists that work with video, performance, installation. That it was amazing how that expression of freedom will start to emerge from that hotel, from those hotels rooms. Um, let's say it. I remember the first edition that we did. The press came and they didn't publish nothing. Next day it was like, okay, with this name Fucking Global, it's like no publication. And then the second edition, the second year, no one showed up from the press. And on the third year, they were like, okay, there's like international press publishing it. We also have to do something. So, and then finally, we could also find a place in the press in Angola. Yeah, it was considered like this. It had to be radical because some of the topics that we had to talk about, like there was artists working for the first time about the prison system in Angola, artists working for the first time on the genocide that happened in 1977 in May. There's artists that were also, even all the discussion of gender that would rise from there, which in some of more conservative institutions, they didn't feel that freedom. But the first thing was to kill the police we had inside ourselves. It's not just that there's like a system of really real censorship in Angola. No, it's not only about that. It's the censorship that we create inside ourselves that we have to come together as a collective to take it down, to destroy it. And after like 7, 8 years working with fucking Global, we were also afraid of becoming an institution because our slogan was okay, from the people to the people, fuck institutions. But then we were feeling okay, guys, it's like it's becoming really a central platform in Luanda. We have to rethink it. So we needed to give a pause, also to find out how we could move from the place we were, like with no institutional support. There's also like there are pros and cons, and from there we start this project of Kinoyeto, which is with filmmaking with young people. Um, we do residencies, and because for us was like it was really afraid what was still happening in Angola regarding the systematic erasure of memory. So sometimes we think about it as something that was a legacy from the colonization, but now, even still today, because of the negligence and the lack of competence from the institutions, these systematic erasure of memory of history still happen. And the idea was, okay, what is the media that we better can conserve what is happening, not only through documentary, but even fiction. So, and that the moment when we start working on the with Kinoyeto, with that association, is that I remember the first edition of the fucking Globe. I arrived at home, and I found a message in my messenger box from a guy that I knew that he was connected to police, and he said like, "Oh, Kiluanji, why don't you do images, photographs of the landscapes? There's so many beautiful landscapes in Angola. Like, why are you involving yourself in this political topics?" But of course, like I really love to come one day, which I can only explore these beautiful landscapes and flowers. But the reality doesn't hit us with flowers, so it's still difficult today to abstract ourselves from the reality that is around. It's difficult to be from this global south and to abstract ourselves from the daily life, from this hard reality that is around. So, and people sometimes say, yeah, like, yeah, but where is your arguments about art? Is sometimes very political. Yeah, I'm sorry about it, but it what has to do is like is that urgency that we feel that to in the order to uh, sometimes it's like uh, we also need the poetry for sure because it's a way to abstract the present. It's a way of doing these temporality movements from past to future, rejecting the present, which it takes a real big effort from us. Yeah, but we had to do it. Well, I think I spoke too much now. They gave me 5, 10 minutes, but I really want to thank for this prize. It's um, mostly because it's not a prize that is only connected with my career, with the work I do, but also with my community collective involvement in Luanda, which I really want to thank every artist that were part of the project where I work. I've been always very welcomed in the Luanda art community. Is where I became an artist. I never went to university, and so this exchange in the streets, you know, we are punks, and that's our base. Um, And just to finish, of course, there was a reference to Koyo here, and also it's something that really impacts the art community and myself, because Koyo was in Luanda. She also was working the project there. She was an inspiration for all of us that live in the continent, that work in the continent, that come together as a collective in the continent. Yes, I don't have nothing against, of course, with Africa diaspora, but I think it's also time to look to the continent and who is working in the continent, who is their daily life and fighting for that. And for the end, I also want to leave my solidarity to the people of Palestine and to our brothers in Congo. Thank you. Can I take it with me?
Well, congratulations, Kiluanji, and keep inspiring us, and no landscapes. So please join us at a celebratory cocktail dînatoire in one of the beautiful rooms of Palazzo Reale next door, and we'll continue networking, speaking, and congratulating Kiluanji. Thank you.